VC, this is Eric. I'm here for Jared's 220 plus uh, subscribers contest. He is Backwoods Metal on the VC, shows all kinds of hard rock and metal. He had asked that we show records by bands that had changed their lead singer and then had good records after that. These are things that people are showing. I will not be talking about them. They're all good albums, though. So, without further ado, all of Jared's info will be in the comments here. Dude, I do dig your channel, and I like when you talk about stuff that means something to you, and you tell stories about what was going on or what it is about records that attracts you to them and that keeps you listening. And you're going to hear some of that in this. I didn't want to show the stuff that everyone else shows. I wanted to show stuff that I liked, even if I don't listen to it as often today as I did once upon a time. This is stuff that I've all cared about at one point in time. And there's a little bit of a cheat at the end, but we'll talk about that. So, starting off with Fate's Warning. This is Parallels. This came out in the early 90s. I bought this at Michigan State University at the Alternative Warehouse Records. Kid you not, Michigan State University in the early 90s had 3 outlets of warehouse records within 2 or 3 blocks of campus, and they had one that had all the alternative stuff, and I was there to visit my best friend. This would have been spring of 92. I was a huge Queensryche fan, and something about Fate's Warning, it called out to me, and this is very much in that Queensryche progressive metal thing that was going on in the early 90s. Speaking of progressive metal, progressive hard rock, Marillion's Brave album. Oh, I should say, Fate's Warning, Parallels. Ray Adler was the vocalist on that album. The original was John Arch. So this is Marillion's Brave album. This is a concept album from the mid-90s. Marillion were a progressive hard rock metal band from the UK. The original singer was Fish. Steve Hogarth was the singer on this record. I dig this record a lot. It gets kind of soft and mellow in points. It's also rocks out pretty good. There is a video full-length album of this that was made by Richard Stanley, who made the films Hardware, and tried to make the Isle of Dr. Moreau. And I watched that, and it wasn't great, but it's interesting that after his career collapsed with Isle of Dr. Moreau, he went to making music videos and worked with Marillion on a Brave project. All right. Sticking with the progressive metal from the 90s, this is a band that I also discovered. At that point in time, I was listening to a lot of metal. This is Dream Theater with Awake. This is with singer Kevin LeBear. Their original singer was Charlie DiMucci. Really good progressive hard rock metal stuff. Once again, they were a band that has exploded in some circles, but early on I really liked their first 2 records with LeBear, this one, and Images and Words. And we're going to talk about them again shortly. So, moving into the 90s. Metal in the 90s, people don't talk about it, but thrash was actually huge and got mainstream. Metallica, Anthrax, Megadeth, all of those bands. Slayer, all those bands had breakout hits. And people talk about grunge and how that destroyed things. But if you really think about it, Alice in Chains was a metal band. Soundgarden's a metal band. Nirvana was a punk band. Screaming Trees was kind of a hard rock punk psych band. Tad was a metal band. So a lot of that stuff was just repackaged and relabeled to be sold. But at its core, it was metal, with a good dose of punk rock and a good dose of college rock. But by the mid to late 90s, things were changing, and there were a lot of bands coming out of different parts of the world that were changing up the sound. They were mixing all of those same things, adding a little bit of pop, a little bit of 70s rock and roll, and that's where you get Turbo Negro, Apocalypse Dudes, which is maybe the greatest record of the first wave of Nordic high-energy rock and roll, garage punk, garage, whatever you want to call it. I call it high-energy rock and roll. Amazing record. If you don't know this record and you like hard rock, you like your AC/DC, you like your Alice Cooper, you like all that 70s rock, you like the Misfits, you like all that stuff, check these guys out. Apocalypse Dudes is the place to start. The original singer in the band was Harold Fossberg. The singer on this album is Hank Helvete, and they're actually onto a new singer by now. But Apocalypse Dudes and Ask Cobra, the record that came before it, are both really, really good. Finally, my little bit of a cheat, because I can't seem to locate my copy of Damaged. This is Black Flag with the first 4 years. Original singer was Keith Morris, then it was Chavo, and then eventually it was Henry Rollins. This is punk hard rock, edging in towards metal as time went on, especially with the Rollins stuff. But if you don't know Black Flag, you got to check out the Black Flag. So, as usual, I got something else to show real quick. You know, sometimes in your life you find a band and they just speak to you and they speak to you. And sometimes you get to meet them. Sometimes you become friends. Sometimes you cause them to reform with a new singer. This is the Jet Blackberries. Their one and only reunion album, Postmodern Ghosts. These guys were on the Return of the Living Dead soundtrack. They recorded some of their early stuff from their incarnation as New Math, which I did a video on, and Jet Blackberries, and some new songs. There's some alternative rock, hard alternative rock and spots, some soft stuff on here. But I want to send a shout out to these guys. I love you guys. I'm so glad that we've been friends for years. So, Postmodern Ghosts, check it out. All right, and I want to talk really quickly about a couple of bands that switched guitar players and then were effective or put out good albums. Really quickly, Iggy and the Stooges, Raw Power. Original guitar player Ron Ashton moves over to bass, and James Williamson comes in to play guitar. This is a classic album. If you like hard rock, if you like punk, you like in-your-face weird stuff, you got to check out the Raw Power. Next up, my all-time favorite punk band from the UK. I like the Pistols, I like the Clash, but for me, it's always been about the Damned. This is their album Machine Gun Etiquette with guitar player Captain Sensible, who originally had been their bass player, the inverse of the Stooges thing. Also, when they reformed for this album, they actually played as the Doomed, and fun fact, their original bass player in that lineup was Lemmy. All right, speaking of the Damned, the Misfits. Original guitarist was Bobby Steele. I believe it was Bobby Steele. It might have been Joey Image. There was a couple lineup changes, but Bobby Steele was on the Static Age years. By the time you get to Walk Among Us, you get Doyle. All right. So I saw that Billy Hurst did a video about essential metal albums, and he talked a lot about 80s metal. And I kind of felt like, 90s metal gets short shrift in a lot of circles, and I think like I said, the whole grunge thing gets in the way. And so it got me thinking about what I think are great metal albums that people don't talk about from the 90s. And this one was a case where a band lost its guitar player and came back, and this is the Galactic Cowboys' Machine Fish album. Great band. Imagine like the Beatles providing vocals for Metallica, basically. If you don't know these guys, give them a listen. Check them out, especially this album, Machine Fish. And then finally, another band that I was tangentially involved with. I knew these guys a little bit. I've talked about them before, but the Helicopters with High Visibility. The original guitar player was, with Galactic Cowboys, Dane Sunner was the original guitar player, and then Wally Farkas came in to play guitar. All right, Helicopters. Dragon was the original guitar player. Strings, who recently passed away, Rip Strings, took over as the lead guitar player. Once again, great high energy rock and roll from Sweden. These guys were great live. Just check them out if you like your AC/DC, you like your Misfits, you like all that kind of stuff. Iron Maiden, Kiss. Helicopters are a band to check out, and High Visibility is a great album to start with. All right, now that I've bumbled through that, thank you for watching. All the best, Jared, with your contest, and I hope you continue to get subscribers. And anybody sees anything they like or want to hear more about, leave comments below. Everybody take care. Talk to you later.